The morning of June 12, 2024, broke over Asheville, North Carolina, with a golden haze, the Blue Ridge Mountains casting long shadows across the city, the air crisp with the scent of blooming rhododendrons, freshly brewed coffee from local roasteries, and the faint sweetness of honeysuckle drifting through the open windows of a modest crafts home on Montford Avenue. Ethan Marshall, 44, stood in his kitchen, his 6'1" frame leaning against the counter, his sandy blonde hair catching the sunlight, his blue eyes warm with a quiet contentment. For 19 years, he'd served as a lead investigator with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office, a job that had shown him the darkest corners of humanity, drug busts, domestic violence, cold cases, that haunted his dreams. But through it all he had his anchor, his wife of 17 years, Sarah Bennett. Sarah was his light, a 42-year-old marketing manager at Blue Ridge Realty, with chestnut hair that fell in soft waves, hazel eyes that sparkled, with laughter, and a smile that could melt away the weight of Ethan's hardest days. They had a daughter, Ava, 16, a junior at Asheville High, who'd just joined the school's debate team, her sharp wit a source of pride for both parents. The Marshall family wasn't wealthy, but they were comfortable, their home filled with the warmth of shared memories. Ava's finger-painted artwork still framed on the fridge, the scuff marks on the hardwood from her first bike lessons, the creaky porch swing where Ethan and Sarah had spent countless evenings watching the sunset over the mountains. Ethan had always been a hands-on dad, coaching Ava's soccer team when she was younger, teaching her how to fish in the French Broad River, and lately he'd taken up a new hobby, building custom trail cameras. He'd started small, tinkering in the garage after long shifts, but soon found a side gig, selling them to local wildlife photographers. The cameras were a way to create something tangible, a counterbalance to the destruction he documented at work. He'd even rigged one to capture time-lapses of the mountains at dawn, sharing the footage with Sarah, who'd watch with a soft smile. "You've got an artist's eye, Ethan," she'd say, her voice a balm to his soul. After Ava started spending more time with friends and debate practice, Ethan had hoped he and Sarah would rediscover their rhythm, maybe take a weekend trip. To the Biltmore estate, just the two of them. He'd come home from the sheriff's office, his badge heavy on his belt, and find Sarah in the kitchen, humming as she chopped vegetables for dinner, her laughter filling the house as they shared. Stories of their day they had enough. Stable, grounded, a life built on trust and love, or so Ethan thought. As he sipped his coffee that morning, watching the mist curl over the mountains, he had no idea that the foundation of his world was about to crack, a crack that would lead him down a path of suspicion, betrayal, and a truth so devastating it would change everything he thought he knew about the woman he loved. The evening of June 15, 2024, settled over Asheville, North Carolina. With a soft glow, the Blue Ridge Mountains fading into a purple haze as the sun dipped below the horizon, the air thick with the scent of pine, grilled burgers from neighborhood, cookouts, and the faint sweetness of blackberry cobbler wafting from a nearby bakery. Montford Avenue was alive with the hum of summer, kids riding bikes, couples walking dogs, the distant strum of a banjo from a porch jam session. But inside, the Marshall family's crafts home, a chill was creeping into Ethan Marshall's heart. Ethan, 44, sat at the dining table, his 6'1" frame tense, his sandy blonde hair disheveled from running his hands through it, his blue eyes clouded with unease. He'd just finished a long shift at the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office, a grueling day of tracking down leads on a burglary ring. But the weight on his chest wasn't from work. It was from Sarah, his wife of 17 years, who'd been slipping away from him piece by piece. Over the past few months, Sarah Bennett, 42, had always been the steady heartbeat of their home, her chestnut hair and hazel eyes a constant in Ethan's chaotic life. But lately, she'd changed. She started staying late at Blue Ridge Realty, claiming client meetings that stretched into the night. She'd go on weekend trips with her colleague Lauren Hayes, a woman Ethan had never trusted. Lauren had a reputation in Asheville for her flashy lifestyle, always at the center of downtown parties, her Instagram filled with photos of martinis and designer heels. Ethan had trusted Sarah's judgment, but now he wasn't so sure. The warmth between them had faded. Conversations that once flowed like the French Broad River now felt stilted. Clipped, Sarah stopped asking about Ethan's cases, no longer laughed at his stories of quirky suspects. And when he showed her a new trail camera he'd built, a sleek model with night vision, she barely glanced up from her phone. "Another gadget?" she'd said, her voice sharp, a tone Ethan had never heard before. "Don't you think we should focus on real priorities, Ethan? Like a new car, or a vacation that doesn't involve fishing?" Her words stung, a quiet contempt that cut deeper than any argument. Ethan felt the heat rise in his chest. "This isn't just a gadget, Sarah," he'd replied, his voice tight. "I've got 2 photographers lined up to buy these next week. It's extra income." But Sarah had rolled her eyes. "Great, pocket change," she muttered, returning to her phone. The distance grew, Sarah's closet filled with new clothes. Silk, blouses, leather boots, a Chanel perfume that cost more than Ethan's monthly gas budget. Yet she complained about their finances. "You're still driving that old Tacoma," she'd snapped during one heated argument. "I need a new SUV, Ethan, not more of your toys." Ethan paid the mortgage, the utilities, Ava's school fees. But to Sarah, it wasn't enough. She rejected his attempts to reconnect. A dinner at the Admiral, a hike on the Appalachian Trail, always claiming she was too tired or had plans with Lauren. 5th weekend in a row, Ethan had whispered to himself one night, lying alone in their king-sized bed, the sheets cold on Sarah's side. They hadn't been intimate in 3 months, and when he'd brought up their last time, Valentine's Day, she'd frowned. "I don't remember," she'd said, her voice distant. The signs piled up like storm clouds over the mountains. Sarah's phone was always in her hand. On silent, the screen turned away. She'd disabled their shared location on Find My iPhone, an app she'd insisted on when Ethan started working high-risk cases. "For safety," she'd said back then, her hazel eyes full of concern. Now, she hadn't invited him to a Blue Ridge Realty event in 6 months, the last one he'd attended. He'd watched her boss, Daniel Carter, a slick man in a tailored suit, his arm lingering too long on a young agent's waist. His wife, Olivia, hovering nearby with a forced smile. Ethan had felt uneasy, but Sarah had brushed it off. "You're too old school, Ethan," she'd said, her tone dismissive now as he sat at the table, the house quiet except for Ava's music drifting. From her room, Ethan's detective instinct screamed. Late nights, new perfume, erased plans, a coldness that felt like betrayal. He'd seen these signs in suspects, the shifting stories, the convenient excuses. But this was his wife, the woman who'd held his hand through Ava's first fever, who'd danced with him under the stars at Biltmore, the woman he loved. Yet, as he stared at the empty chair across from him, Ethan felt a gnawing fear, not just that Sarah might be cheating, but that he was losing her, and he didn't know why. 19 years of investigating crimes had taught him one thing: the truth always comes out, and Ethan was determined to find it no matter the cost. The morning of June 18, 2024, dawned over Asheville, North Carolina. With a restless energy, the Blue Ridge Mountains shrouded in a thin mist, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth, wild mint growing along the French Broad River, and the faint tang of charcoal from last night's neighborhood bonfires. Montford Avenue stirred with the quiet rhythm of a Saturday, families heading to the River Arts District for pottery classes, joggers weaving through the historic streets, the distant chime of a church bell echoing through the valley. But for Ethan Marshall, 44, the day carried a weight far heavier than the mist. He stood in the kitchen of his crafts home, his 6'1" frame rigid, his sandy blonde hair unkempt, his blue eyes hollow with a mix of dread and determination. The past few days had been a slow unraveling, each moment tightening the knot of suspicion in his chest. Sarah Bennett, his wife of 17 years, had become a stranger, her late nights at Blue Ridge Realty, her weekend trips with Lauren Hayes, her cold dismissal of Ethan's attempts to reconnect. All of it pointed to a truth he couldn't ignore. But the breaking point came the night before, when he'd seen a text flash across Sarah's locked phone screen as she stepped into the shower. "DC. Meet me at the usual spot tonight," the message read. Sarah had snatched the phone away before Ethan could react, her hazel eyes flickering with something. Guilt, fear, he couldn't tell. "Who's DC?" Ethan had asked, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "Daniel Carter," Sarah replied too quickly, her voice tight. "My boss. He's got a last-minute client meeting at the Grove Park Inn. Wants me to handle the pitch. But Ethan knew better. Daniel Carter, her slick boss at Blue Ridge Realty, had a reputation in Asheville for more than just real estate deals, rumors of late-night client events at upscale venues. His wife Olivia often absent while he charmed younger agents. Ethan had met Daniel at a company picnic last year, his tailored suit and too perfect smile setting Ethan's detective instincts on edge. Sarah had laughed it off then, but now Ethan wasn't so sure. He'd spent the night sleepless, replaying every detail. Sarah's story didn't add up. The Grove Park Inn was a luxury resort, not a place for last-minute meetings. And why would Daniel need Sarah, a marketing manager, for a pitch at 9 p.m. on a Friday? Ethan's 19 years at the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office had honed his ability to spot lies, shifting eyes, rushed excuses, stories that didn't align. And Sarah was showing all the signs that morning as Sarah stood in the kitchen, dressed in a cream linen dress and heels Ethan had never seen. She announced her plans. "I'm heading to Lawrence for the day," she said, her voice overly bright. "We're working on a new campaign. Might stay late to brainstorm over wine." She kissed Ethan's cheek, a perfunctory peck that felt like a stranger's touch, and left. Her new Chanel perfume lingering in the air. Ethan waited 10 minutes, then logged into their shared iCloud account, a password Sarah hadn't changed. Her iPhone pinged not at Lauren's downtown loft, but at a secluded spot along Lake Lure, a 40-minute drive south of Asheville. Ethan knew the area well. Lake Lure was a picturesque retreat, its shimmering waters framed by the Hickory Nut Gorge, a favorite for tourists and locals alike, but this spot was off the main path, a private cove accessible only by boat. Known among Asheville's elite for discreet gatherings 3 years ago, Ethan had investigated a boating accident there, a wealthy developer who drowned after a private party that turned out to be a cover for a high-stakes gambling. Ring? The memory sent a chill down his spine. Sarah wasn't at Lauren's. She was lying. Ethan's hands trembled as he opened his laptop, pulling up the tracking software he used for his trail cameras. He'd installed a small GPS tracker in Sarah's car 2 days ago, a line he never thought he'd cross. But 19 years of detective work had taught him to follow evidence, not emotions. The tracker confirmed her location at Lake Lure, and her. Google Maps history had been wiped clean, a deliberate move to cover her tracks. Ethan's mind raced. Sarah's new clothes, her late nights, the text from D.C., the coldness in her touch. It all pointed to an affair. But Lake Lure's reputation for secrecy hinted at something darker. He thought of Ava, 16, still asleep upstairs, her debate team practice later that day. She deserved a mother who was honest, a family that was whole, but Ethan couldn't ignore the truth any longer. He grabbed his trail camera bag, the one with his best model, a long-range lens with 4K video, and headed for his truck, his badge heavy in his pocket, his heart heavier still. 19 years of chasing criminals had prepared him for this moment, but nothing could prepare him for the betrayal he was about to uncover, a betrayal that would shatter the life he'd built with the woman he loved. The afternoon of June 18, 2024, hung heavy over Lake Lure, North Carolina, the sun glinting off the water like 1,000 shattered mirrors, the Blue Ridge Mountains framing the horizon in a jagged embrace, the air thick with the scent of sunscreen, pine sap, and the faint musk of lake water. The secluded cove Ethan Marshall had tracked Sarah to was eerily quiet, save for the occasional cry of a red-tailed hawk circling above and the distant hum of a boat engine. Ethan, 44, parked his old Tacoma at a public boat ramp 2 miles from the cove, his 6'1" frame tense as he assembled his trail camera equipment, his sandy blonde hair damp with sweat, his blue eyes narrowed with a mix of dread and resolve. He'd driven the 40 minutes from Asheville with a single purpose, to uncover the truth about Sarah, his wife of 17 years, who'd lied about her whereabouts, claiming to be with Lauren Hayes while her GPS pinged at this hidden spot known for Asheville's elite to hold discreet gatherings. Ethan's 19 years at the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office had taught him to trust evidence over emotions, and every sign pointed to betrayal. Sarah's late nights, her new perfume, the text from D.C., her cold dismissal of their life together. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see. He set up his equipment with the precision of a seasoned investigator, attaching a long-range lens to his trail camera, mounting it on a tripod for stability and connecting it to his laptop for a live feed. He'd chosen this ramp for its isolation. No security cameras, no nosy tourists, just a cracked concrete slab sloping into the murky water, surrounded by dense pines and the occasional litter of beer cans. A young couple, Mia and her son, Caleb, were fishing nearby, the boy's laughter echoing as he reeled in a small bass. "Nice catch," Ethan called, forcing a smile. "That's a keeper." Mia nodded, her braided hair catching the sunlight. "He's been at it all morning," she said, then tilted her head. "That one of those fancy cameras?" "Yeah," Ethan replied, adjusting the focus. "Just testing it out. Wildlife photography," he lied, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. He didn't want witnesses, not now, not when his marriage was on the line, after Mia and Caleb moved down the shore. Ethan launched the camera's live feed, angling it toward the cove. He'd mapped the path to stay over public water, avoiding trespassing laws. The screen flickered to life, revealing the shimmering expanse of Lake Lure, the cove's horseshoe shape coming into view, framed by overhanging willows. A sleek black yacht with silver trim was anchored there, its deck bustling with activity. Music drifted through the camera's audio. Soft jazz, laughter, the clink of glasses. Ethan's heart pounded as he zoomed in, his hands steady from years of crime scene work, but inside he was unraveling. "Please don't let it be her," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Please, Sarah, don't do this to us." The image sharpened, and there she was. Sarah. Bennett, his wife, the woman who'd promised to love him forever, standing on the yacht's rear deck in a red bikini he'd never seen, her chestnut hair loose, her hazel eyes hidden behind sunglasses. She was laughing, her arm draped around Daniel Carter's shoulders, his hand resting on her waist. Too familiar, too intimate, Ethan's breath caught. A physical pain searing through his chest, as if someone had plunged a knife into his heart. Daniel, her boss, was in a white linen shirt, his tailored confidence on full display. But they weren't alone. Lauren Hayes was there, lounging in, a barely-there swimsuit, sipping a cocktail. Two other men Ethan didn't recognize were at a small bar, pouring drinks. A glass table between them held a mirror, its surface reflecting sunlight and what looked like lines of white powder. Drugs, Ethan realized, his detective instincts kicking in. This wasn't just an affair, it was something darker, something illegal. He watched, frozen, as Sarah leaned into Daniel, her lips brushing his in a kiss that was anything but innocent, a deep, passionate kiss that seemed to stretch into eternity. The kind of kiss she hadn't given Ethan in years, the kind of kiss that spoke of familiarity, of routine. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a betrayal woven into the fabric of their life. Ethan's hands trembled as he adjusted the camera, capturing every detail. The pain was raw, visceral, but he couldn't look away. He needed the evidence for himself, for Ava, for the life they'd built. Then, a flash of movement. Lauren pointed toward the sky, her voice sharp. "What's that?" Sarah's head snapped up, her sunglasses slipping as she squinted in Ethan's direction. His stomach dropped. The camera wasn't airborne, but its lens glinted in the sun. A rookie mistake. He quickly tilted it down, cutting the feed, his heart racing. Minutes later, his phone buzzed. Sarah's name on the screen. He let it ring 4 times before answering. "Hey," he said, his voice a hollow imitation of calm. "Hi, honey." Sarah's tone was forced, overly cheerful. "What are you up to?" "Just in the garage," Ethan lied, his eyes on the camera. "Working on a new trail cam, thought I'd test it later." "That sounds nice," she said. A pause, the sound of water lapping against the yacht in the background. "I'm at Lauren's. We're brainstorming, might be late." "Have fun," Ethan replied, the words tasting like ash. "Love you," she said, the lie so effortless it broke him. "You too," he managed. Ending the call, he sat on the ramp, the camera at his feet, the lake stretching out before him, a beautiful facade hiding a rotting truth. Mia glanced over, her eyes soft with concern. "You okay, mister?" she asked, Caleb clutching a fish-shaped toy. Ethan nodded, unable to speak. The life he'd known was gone, shattered by the woman he'd loved for 17 years. But he wasn't just a husband. He was a detective, and he wouldn't let this destroy him, not without a fight. The evening of June 18, 2024, draped Asheville, North Carolina in a somber twilight, the Blue Ridge Mountains fading into a deep indigo silhouette, the air heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth, blooming jasmine from neighborhood gardens, and the faint smokiness of a distant campfire. Montford Avenue was quiet now, the earlier bustle of Saturday replaced by the soft glow of porch lights and the occasional bark of a dog. But inside the Marshall family's Crafts home, Ethan Marshall, 44, stood in the living room, his 6'1" frame trembling with a mix of rage and heartbreak, his sandy blonde hair matted with sweat, his blue eyes hollow, reflecting the devastation of what he'd witnessed at Lake Lure. Sarah Bennett, his wife of 17 years, had shattered their life, kissing Daniel Carter on a yacht surrounded by drugs and debauchery, a betrayal so raw it felt like a physical wound. Ethan had driven back from the lake in a fog, the trail camera footage burning a hole in his laptop bag, each mile replaying the image of Sarah in that red bikini, her lips on another man, her laughter a dagger in his chest. He'd walked into the house, expecting to feel something, anger, despair, but instead, there was a chilling numbness, a detachment he'd only felt at the worst crime scenes in his 19 years with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. Ava, 16, was at debate practice. Her absence a small mercy. Ethan couldn't face her now, not with the truth clawing at his. Inside, he moved through the house like a ghost, each room a reminder of the life he thought he had. Their wedding photo on the mantel, Sarah's smile radiant in her white dress, the couch where they'd watched Ava take her first steps, the kitchen table where they'd shared countless meals. Now it all felt like a lie, a stage set for a play that had ended in tragedy. Ethan knew he couldn't stay, not tonight, not with Sarah's deception hanging over him like a storm cloud. He needed space, a place to think, to plan, to protect Ava from the fallout. He pulled out a duffel bag from the hall closet, packing with mechanical precision his birth certificate, insurance papers, banking documents, a week's worth of clothes, his service weapon, the laptop with the footage, and a small wooden box his father had given him, filled with fishing lures from their trips to the French Broad River. Memories of a simpler time. He wrote a note on a sticky note, his hand shaking. "I need space, don't look for me," and placed it on the kitchen counter where Sarah would see it. He couldn't confront her, not yet, not when the wound was so fresh. He called an old friend, Nathan Brooks, a former deputy who'd retired. To a small farm 25 miles north of Asheville, near the town of Mars Hill, Nathan had a guest cabin on his property, a rustic retreat he'd built for family visits. "It's late, Ethan," Nathan answered, his voice gruff with sleep. "What's wrong?" "Marriage is done," Ethan said, his voice flat, the words tasting like ash. "I need a place to crash, somewhere quiet." A pause, then Nathan's tone softened. "Cabin's empty, has power, water, a bed, nothing fancy, but it's yours as long as you need." "Thanks, brother," Ethan replied. "I'll be there by morning." "Take 221 north, turn onto Bailey Road. Gate code is 0423, keys under the flower pot," Nathan said. "I'm sorry, man. Whatever happened, I'm here." Ethan hung up, poured a glass of bourbon, and stepped onto the back porch, the mountains a dark shadow against the night sky. He downed the drink in one gulp, the burn a fleeting distraction from the ache in his chest. He left the house at midnight, driving through Asheville's sleeping streets, the city's charm, its art galleries, breweries, the vibrant River Arts District, now a cruel contrast to his shattered world. He arrived at Nathan's farm just before 1 a.m., the cabin a small log structure nestled among pines, a creek running nearby, its gentle murmur the only sound in the stillness. Ethan settled in, the cabin sparse but functional, a twin bed, a small table, a wood stove for heat, a deck overlooking the creek. He sat on the deck, the footage still, unplayed on his laptop. He couldn't bring himself to watch it again, not yet. Sarah called 3 times that night, her voicemails escalating from confusion. "Ethan, where are you?" "I just got home," to irritation. "This isn't funny, call me back," to tears. "Please, I'm worried, I don't know what's going on." Ethan listened to each one, feeling nothing but a cold detachment. He disabled his phones. Location sharing, ensuring Sarah couldn't track him. 2 days passed in near silence. Ethan avoiding the world, his only contact a text from Mia, the woman from the lake. "Hey, it's Mia from Lake Lure. Got your number from the card you gave Caleb, just checking if you're okay." Her kindness pierced through his numbness. "I'm managing," he replied. "Thanks for checking," she responded. "Caleb wants to know if you'll show him your camera sometime. We're at the creek near Mars Hill tomorrow. Come by if you need a distraction," Ethan surprised himself by agreeing. The next day he found them at a public picnic area, Mia setting up a small grill while Caleb chased minnows in the creek. The boy ran to Ethan. "Cameraman," he shouted, his grin wide. Ethan helped Mia with the grill, roasting hot dogs over the fire for a few hours. The simple act of sharing a meal, watching Caleb splash in the water, eased the weight on his heart. But as the sun dipped below the mountains, the pain returned, a reminder of the battle ahead. Ethan knew he couldn't hide forever. Sarah's betrayal had broken him, but he wouldn't let it define him. He'd fight for Ava, for himself, for a future he could still build. The morning of June 23, 2024, broke over Mars Hill, North Carolina. With a deceptive calm, the Blue Ridge Mountains glowing in the soft light of dawn, their peaks dusted with the first hints of summer haze, the air crisp with the scent of dew-kissed grass, wild honeysuckle growing along the creek, and the faint aroma of wood smoke from Nathan Brooks' cabin. The small farm where Ethan Marshall had taken refuge was a quiet haven, the creek's gentle murmur blending with the chirp of sparrows and the rustle of leaves in the morning breeze. But for Ethan, 44, sitting on the deck of the guest cabin, his 6'1" frame hunched over a cup of black coffee, his sandy blonde hair unkempt, his blue eyes shadowed with exhaustion, there was no peace. 5 days had passed since he'd fled Asheville after witnessing Sarah's betrayal at Lake Lure. Her passionate kiss with Daniel Carter, the drugs on the yacht, the shattering of their 17-year marriage, and the pain had settled into a dull ache, a constant companion as he grappled with what to do next. Ethan had spent those days in isolation, the trail camera footage untouched on his laptop, its existence a silent accusation he wasn't ready to face again. He'd called in sick to the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office, a first in his 19-year career. Unable to focus on cases when his own life was a crime scene, Sarah's calls had stopped after the 3rd day, her voicemails, once tearful, then angry, now replaced by an eerie silence. But that morning, as the sun climbed higher, Ethan's burner phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. He answered, his voice rough. "This is Ethan. Detective Marshall, this is Rachel Harper with the Asheville PD's Special Investigations Unit." A woman's voice, sharp and professional, cut through the stillness. "We need to meet. Off the record as soon as possible." Ethan's stomach tightened, his detective instincts flaring. "What's this about?" he asked, though a part of him already knew. "It's better we discuss in person," Rachel replied. "Can you meet me at the Grey Eagle Cafe in the River Arts District? 9 a.m.? Ethan agreed, the call ending with a click that echoed in his chest. 2 hours later, he sat across from Rachel in a secluded corner of the cafe, the hum of indie music and the clatter of coffee cups fading into the background. Rachel, mid-40s, with short auburn hair and piercing green eyes, had the look of someone who'd seen too much, her notepad open, her expression grim. "We've been investigating Blue Ridge Realty for 6 months, she began, her voice low. "Money laundering through fake property sales, drug trafficking at their so-called client events, and sex trafficking, using their parties to recruit and exploit young women." Ethan's coffee turned to acid in his stomach, the pieces falling into place. "Lake Lure, the drugs, the yacht, and Sarah?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your wife has been on our radar for 8 weeks, Rachel said, her eyes softening with something like pity. "She's not just a bystander, Ethan. She's a facilitator. She lures new agents in, promising big commissions, then introduces them to special clients at these lake parties, clients with specific demands." Ethan's hands clenched around his mug, the ceramic hot against his skin, but he felt nothing. "You have proof?" he asked, his voice hollow. Rachel nodded, sliding her phone across the table. "You need to see this," she said, playing a grainy surveillance video. Sarah at a party, handing a drink to a young woman, her smile calculated. The woman stumbling minutes later, a man leading her below deck. Ethan's blood ran cold. "That drink was laced with GHB, Rachel said. "We've got evidence of her doing this at least 4 times. Ethan pushed the phone back, his mind reeling. The woman he'd loved, the mother of his daughter, wasn't just unfaithful, she was a criminal, complicit in a network that destroyed lives. "There's more," Rachel continued. "Your footage from Lake Lure, we got a tip about it from a source. It identifies 3 key players we've been tracking, including Daniel Carter. He's the ringleader. His wife Olivia handles the drugs, MDMA, ketamine, GHB, easy to slip into drinks at these events." Ethan's voice was a rasp. "How deep is Sarah in this?" "Deep enough for federal charges," Rachel said. "Conspiracy, trafficking, drug distribution. She's looking at 10 years minimum, but if she cooperates, testifies against Carter, she might get a deal." Ethan shook his head. "She won't," he said, his voice bitter. "She's too loyal to him." Rachel studied him, her gaze steady. "We're moving in soon. Raids on all Blue Ridge properties within the week. I wanted you to know she's on our list." Ethan thanked her, his mind a storm as he drove back to the cabin. The woman he'd built a life with, who'd held Ava through nightmares, who'd laughed with him under the Biltmore's Christmas lights, was a monster. He couldn't reconcile the 2 Sarahs, the wife he'd loved and the criminal she'd become 4 days later. Rachel called again, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Sarah turned herself in this morning," she said. "Walked into our office. At 6 a.m. asked to give a statement. Full confession, 15 pages, names, dates, locations, every deal she facilitated." Ethan gripped the phone, his knuckles white. "In exchange for what?" "That's the thing," Rachel said. "She's not asking for a deal, said she wants to make things right for what she did to you." Ethan sat on the cabin's deck, the creek's murmur a cruel contrast to the chaos in his mind. Had Sarah known she was being watched? Had his disappearance forced her to face her guilt? He thought of Ava, 16, still unaware of her mother's crimes. The life they'd had was gone, replaced by a nightmare. "Are you pushing for maximum charges?" Rachel asked. "No," Ethan said after a long pause. "But I won't ask for leniency either." "Understood," Rachel replied. "For what it's worth, I think she's genuinely sorry. For you, not the rest. Not sorry enough to—" "Stop!" Ethan said, his voice cold. "Not until she got caught." That night, Mia and Caleb came by with a homemade apple pie, Caleb running to the creek to skip stones, while Mia sat with Ethan on the deck. "You look like you've been through hell," she said, pouring him a glass of sweet tea. Ethan told her everything, the footage, the investigation, Sarah's confession. Mia listened, her eyes soft with understanding. "I'm so sorry," she said. "Finding out she cheated was bad enough, but this—" "It's a whole other level of betrayal," Ethan nodded, the weight of it all pressing down. "I keep asking myself if I missed the signs," he said. 19 years as a detective, and I didn't see it." Mia shook her head. "You can't blame yourself for her choices," she said, her voice firm. "My brother got caught up in a scam a few years back. Fake investments, lost everything. I didn't see it either. Sometimes the people we love hide the worst parts of themselves." Her words were a small comfort, a reminder that he wasn't alone in his blindness. As the stars emerged over the mountains, Ethan felt a flicker of resolve. Sarah's crimes had destroyed their past, but he wouldn't let them destroy his future. He'd protect Ava, rebuild his life, and find a way to heal, no matter how long it took. The morning of July 10th, 2024, dawned over Mars Hill, North Carolina. With a quiet promise, the Blue Ridge Mountains bathed in a golden glow, their slopes alive with the hum of cicadas and the rustle of leaves in a gentle summer breeze. The air, rich with the scent of freshly cut hay, wild honeysuckle blooming along the creek, and the earthy tang of the forest floor after a light rain. Nathan Brooks' farm had become Ethan Marshall's sanctuary, the small log cabin a place of healing after the storm of Sarah's betrayal. Ethan, 44, stood on the cabin's deck, his 6'1" frame straighter now, his sandy blonde hair trimmed, his blue eyes clearer though still shadowed by the pain of the past month. Sarah Bennett, his wife of 17 years, had shattered his world, first with her affair with Daniel Carter, then With the revelation of her role in Blue Ridge Realty's criminal empire, her confession to the Asheville PD had set the wheels of justice in motion. But it had also left Ethan to pick up the pieces of his life. He'd spent the first weeks in a haze of grief, the trail camera footage from Lake Lure, a constant reminder of Sarah's deception. But now, as the summer sun warmed the deck beneath his feet, Ethan felt a shift, a quiet determination to reclaim his identity. To build something new from the ashes of his marriage, he started with the cabin, throwing himself into small projects that gave him purpose. He replaced the creaky floorboards on the deck, their weathered wood giving way to fresh pine. The scent of sawdust a balm to his wounded soul. He built shelves along the cabin's interior walls, filling them with books he'd always meant to read. Steinbeck, Hemingway, a field guide to local birds, each page a step away from the darkness. He fixed the leaky faucet in the tiny kitchen, the steady drip replaced by the satisfying hum of running water. Each task, no matter how small, felt like a victory, a way to take back control. Nathan stopped by one afternoon, watching Ethan sand a new railing for the deck. "You're making this place your own," he said, his gruff voice warm with approval. "Been thinking about selling this parcel. 10 acres, the cabin, the old barn up the hill. Good spot for your cameras." Ethan paused, the idea taking root. "How much?" he asked, surprising himself. $150,000, Nathan said. "Below market. I'd rather see it go to you than some developer." Ethan called his bank that evening, securing a land loan with the equity from his sheriff's pension. The next day, he signed the purchase agreement, the deed to the land a tangible symbol of his new beginning. He turned the barn into a workshop for his trail cameras. Word had spread through the sheriff's office about his side gig, and soon he had contracts, wildlife photographers, a local conservation group, even a search and rescue team needing aerial footage for training. Ethan found solace in the work, the hum of his tools, the satisfaction of creating something useful, a stark contrast to the destruction Sarah had left behind. Mia and Caleb became a regular part of his life, the young mother and her son bringing light to his days. Mia would arrive with groceries, cooking simple meals in the cabin's kitchen, fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, while Caleb explored the creek, chasing dragonflies and collecting smooth river stones. "Look, Ethan!" Caleb would shout, holding up a shiny pebble. "It's a treasure for your new house." Ethan kept every stone, lining them along the cabin's windowsill, a reminder of the innocence he was fighting to protect for his own daughter. Ava, 16, had taken the news of her mother's betrayal hard. Ethan had sat her down a week after Sarah's confession, explaining everything in careful, measured words. Ava's tears had broken his heart, but her resilience, her determination to focus on school, on debate team, gave him strength. She'd started spending weekends at the cabin, finding comfort in the quiet. "I like it here, Dad," she'd said one evening, sitting on the deck with a mug of hot cocoa. "It feels safe." Ethan's bond with Mia grew slowly, organically, built on shared moments rather than grand gestures. One evening, as they watched the sunset over the mountains, Mia spoke softly. "I've been thinking about planting a garden here. Next spring, tomatoes, zucchini, maybe some herbs." Her brown eyes met his, tentative but warm. "I'd like that," Ethan replied, his voice steady, meaning more than just the garden. He knew they weren't rushing into anything. Both had been burned by love before. But there was a quiet understanding between them, a promise to show up, to build something honest. A week later, a letter arrived from Sarah, her handwriting on the envelope a jolt to Ethan's system. He sat on the deck for an hour before opening it, the creek's murmur a steadying presence. "Ethan." The letter began. "I know I've lost the right to ask for forgiveness, and I won't. I just need you to know I remember the woman I was before I let ambition and greed consume me. I remember loving you, truly. I remember the man who held my hand through Ava's first fever, who built me a garden trellis for our anniversary. Those memories are real even if I destroyed what we had. I hope you find someone who loves you the way you deserve, Sarah." Ethan read it twice, the words a mix of pain and closure. He walked to the fire pit, where embers still glowed from the morning's fire, and dropped the letter in, watching it curl and blacken, not out of anger, but because he no longer needed to carry her words. He was letting go, not just of Sarah, but of the man he'd been with her. As the summer deepened, Ethan found a rhythm, working in the barn, sharing meals with Mia and Caleb, rebuilding his bond with Ava. He wasn't healed, not yet, but he was moving forward, one deliberate step. At a time, the mountains stood watch over his new life, a silent promise that he could rise again stronger, wiser, whole. The morning of September 15th, 2024, unfolded over Mars Hill, North Carolina, with a serene clarity, the Blue Ridge Mountains standing tall against a sky streaked with hues of pink and gold, their slopes vibrant with the first whispers of autumn, maples beginning to blush red, the air crisp with the scent of fallen leaves, ripe apples from a nearby orchard, and the faint smokiness of a neighbor's wood fire. Nathan Brooks's farm, now Ethan Marshall's own, was a picture of quiet beauty, the 10-acre property alive. With the rhythm of a new season, Ethan, 44, stood on the deck of his log cabin, his 6'1" frame steady, his sandy blonde hair catching the morning light, his blue eyes reflecting a hard-earned peace. The past 3 months had been a crucible. Sarah Bennett's betrayal, her affair with Daniel Carter, her role in Blue Ridge, Realty's criminal empire, had nearly broken him. But Ethan had fought his way through the darkness, building a new life from the wreckage. The wheels of justice had turned swiftly after Sarah's confession. Rachel Coleman and the Asheville PD's Special Investigations Unit had moved in. Search warrants executed on Blue Ridge Realty's offices in late June. The raids uncovered a trove of evidence, financial records showing millions laundered through fake property sales, client lists tied to drug distribution, and encrypted emails detailing the trafficking of young women for high-end clients. Daniel Carter, his CFO Mark Ellison and broker Victor Hayes were arrested within days, charged with racketeering, money laundering, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. Sarah's 15-page confession had been the linchpin. Her testimony in court a damning blow to Daniel's defense. She detailed every party, every transaction, every girl she'd recruited, her voice steady as she recounted the horrors she'd enabled. Daniel was convicted on all counts, sentenced to 25 years without parole. Mark and Victor received 15 and 12 years respectively. Sarah's fate came last, her cooperation sparing her a harsher sentence. But not prison entirely. She was given 18 months in a minimum security facility, a $50,000 fine, and a lifetime ban from real estate. Ethan had finalized their divorce in August, the papers signed with a quiet finality. He'd sat through her. Sentencing. Watching from the back of the courtroom, Ava at his side, holding his hand, Sarah had glanced at him once, her hazel eyes filled with a mix of shame and regret. But Ethan felt no anger, only a hollow relief. Justice had been served, not just for him, but for the women Sarah and her accomplices had exploited. Back at the farm, Ethan had poured his energy into creating, not destroying. He'd expanded the barn workshop, his trail camera business thriving with contracts from the sheriff's office, local universities, and even a documentary crew filming the region's black bears. He'd built a small guest cabin on the property, a one-room retreat with a loft, bed and a wood stove, learning carpentry as he went, the physical labor a grounding force, a way to channel his grief into something tangible. Mia and Caleb had become family, their presence a constant in Ethan's new life. They'd planted the garden Mia had dreamed of. Tomatoes, zucchini, basil, and sunflowers, its rows a vibrant patchwork against the green of the farm. Caleb, now a regular at the creek, had taken to calling Ethan Uncle E, a nickname that warmed Ethan's heart. Ava, 16, had found her footing too, spending more time at the farm, her laughter filling the air as she helped Mia in the garden or joined Ethan in the workshop. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she'd said one evening, her voice soft. "You didn't let Mom break you." Those words had nearly brought Ethan to tears, a reminder of why he'd fought so hard. One crisp September morning, Ethan sat with Mia on a bench by the creek, the water sparkling in the sunlight, a pair of mallards drifting lazily downstream. Caleb was at school, Ava at debate practice, leaving the two of them in a rare moment of quiet. "I never thought I'd feel this again," Ethan said, his voice steady. "Free. Not happy, not yet, but free." Mia smiled, her brown eyes warm. "You've earned it," she said, resting her hand on his. "You built this, your home, your family, your peace." Ethan nodded. the weight of the past 3 months lifting, not gone, but lighter. He looked out at the farm, the cabin, the barn, the garden, the guest house he'd built with his own hands, and saw not just a place but a future. He'd started using his trail cameras for creation, not investigation, capturing time lapses of the mountains at sunrise, the footage a gift for Ava, who'd watch with a smile. "It's beautiful, Dad," she'd say, and for the first time in months Ethan believed he could be part of something beautiful again. The farm was more than land. It was a home, a sanctuary, a testament to his resilience. Mia and Caleb, Ava and Ethan, they were a family not bound by blood but by choice, by the quiet strength of showing up for each other. As the sun climbed higher, Ethan felt the mountain's silent promise, a vow that he'd risen from the ashes of betrayal, not unscathed but whole, ready to embrace the possibility of a new day, a new life, a new love.